everyone. This is Cloud's Ace Podcast, bringing you the latest in cloud security through captivating chats with fascinating cybersecurity experts who are leaving their mark on the industry. Cloud Ace is brought to you by the SANS Institute and hosted by SAN fellow Frank Kim. And now, prepare for departure. We are cleared for takeoff. And here's your captain, Frank Kim.
Hello and welcome to the SANS Cloud Ace podcast. Today, I'm extremely excited to have with us Jadee Hanson, who is the CISO and the CIO at Code 42. Jadee, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, let's dive right into it. And like we do, we like to start the episodes with a little bit of personal history. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, kind of where you came from, and also how you wound up eventually getting into cybersecurity?
Sounds good. Let's start with how I got into cybersecurity. This is way long time ago. I actually got really interested in technology and computers like early in high school. And in high school, my technology coordinator at my school district allowed me to come kind of after school, and he would teach me kind of all the things that he knew. Things are a lot different then, but kind of spurred a really, really deep interest that I had in technology and how computers work. We used to buy all the different computer parts for our computer labs and sort of like set them up in assembly line. And I would put the computers together and assemble them. This is when we had desktops for different computer labs. And that just really sparked a deep interest for me to learn more about technology, learn more about computers, computer security, and decided I absolutely wanted to go to school for that and then have a career in it. So very few people know that early on exactly what they wanted to do. I was fortunate to really find a passion of mine and stick with it kind of through. From a personal standpoint, I'm married. I've been married for 19 years, I believe. I have 3 beautiful girls. Thanks. Next week is our anniversary, actually. I have three beautiful girls. I have 15-year-old, 13-year-old, and a 12-year-old right now. And so we are very busy. It is sometimes hard to be a girl mom of teenagers, but every day is still a gift.
Yeah, amazing. Wow. So, it's funny. My wife and I, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary earlier this year. And I also have 3 kids, similar in age, the oldest. I've got two older girls, 16 and 12. And then the youngest, we've got a big gap. The youngest, he's 4. So, yeah, we got the whole age spectrum here.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Now, that's really interesting what you said about knowing so early that you wanted to get into security. And it's only in recent years that now there are degrees and master's degrees and so on in cybersecurity. But, back when we were coming up back in the day, there was no such thing. So knowing that you wanted to get into this, what did you study and how did you find those paths? Because you kind of had to make it yourself, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I went to school, I did a standard computer information systems degree, did some programming classes. I think I was like one class short of like a minor in computer science. And then, I really wanted to finish school early. I paid for a lot of it and so wanted to finish early. I graduated after 3 years and started working at Deloitte right away. And at Deloitte, I joined a program that was called the Enterprise Risk Services Program. And it was probably the closest to a true cybersecurity job at the time. I was doing a lot tied to security audit. I was doing a lot tied to security consulting. And so I did a ton of pen testing. I will be the first to say I was not a great pen tester, but I did a ton of pen testing early on. I joke that a lot of times, like I was doing pen testing when nobody really even knew what a pen test was.
Your vulnerability tests, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people didn't even know the term pen testing at the time. So a lot has absolutely changed, but early on, I graduated from school and jumped right in doing that job at Deloitte.
It's funny that you mentioned that back then, even people didn't know what the term pen testing was, because I remember back then, other IT leaders, they would say, oh yeah, we have to have a pen test done. And I couldn't figure out what that was for a few moments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, you started over at Deloitte. That's probably the best experience somebody early in their career could have, and seeing so many companies and different businesses and interacting with different people. That's great. And, now let's fast forward, all the way to the present day with Code 42. And we'll go back to what happened in the middle here a little bit later. But with Code 42, I originally got introduced to Code 42 not as a security product, a security company, but we used it in a prior life for more backup, right? But Code 42 went through a change in direction in business, and you started out, I think, as that backup solution, but that was spun out into CrashPlan, and I think you have been there for all of this transformation. Can you tell us, kind of what that journey was like, and kind of what it meant to the business and what it meant for the security team and the IT team?
Yeah. Yeah. We've been really fortunate at Code42. When I started, and I started 7 years ago, we had this business, CrashPlan, that really had a great set of ARR tied to it. And what we wanted to do was we took our Series B funding round and really invested heavily into a security product. And that was close to 7 years ago, where we took that Series B funding. We not only were able to use that funding source, but also a lot of the revenue that we were gaining from CrashPlan at the time to really springboard our security product. The security product took a lot of the kind of foundational elements that we had in place with the CrashPlan product, and today built it into what we have today, which is a true insider threat / data loss protection tool. The CrashPlan business, about a year and a half ago, we decided, hey, these are two very separate businesses that need a very different strategic roadmap kind of tied to them. And so we ended up spinning off our CrashPlan business to another company. And from a technical standpoint, being the CIO as well, very technical, very strong technical challenges, because you're essentially kind of ripping apart systems to try to figure out, how do we operate a company in a completely siloed fashion. And so a lot of challenges throughout that year as we separated the two organizations, but now that organization is completely bifurcated from Code 42. And Code 42 today is still operating and delivering a really strong security product in the market. The product at the very basis is around providing security teams visibility to insider risk exposures. So insider risk data exposures kind of across the organization.
Now, you've got a very unique role at Code 42, because not only do you head up the security program, keep the organization secure, but responsible for technology in terms of being the CIO, but you're also heavily involved in product development, product direction. As that vendor yourself with that hat on, how early do you and your team get involved in even using your own products, and how do you get involved in their corresponding development?
Yeah, this is actually, obviously a very unique role for me, being a security operator as part of a security vendor organization. And it's one that I didn't really know that I would enjoy as much as I do. I love testing product. I love getting in the weeds of product, understanding how things work. And at the end of the day, I love delighting people that are part of the security teams, just like mine. I think over the course of my years as a CISO, I have used many, many terrible security products. And if I can be part of improving that experience for security teams, like that makes me so excited. There is like nothing better than hearing from a peer of mine, like, oh, wow, your product really helped me out, or your team really helped me out. that means the world to me. And so for my role at Code42, part of it is really working with the product team on what are we building? So roadmap stuff first, and then also like how are we building things, and is it meeting kind of ultimate goals of what the security user is going to expect? And so the roadmap is set. Our CTO delivers product, and our team is kind of the first line to test things. And so we use the product fully internally as a true operational part of our overall security program. And then we test like all the different features, functionality that are coming out in the product. And then we have ongoing feedback sessions with our product managers as well as our research and development team on, hey, usability of this isn't where we would expect it to be. And we kind of iterate through till we get to a point where the user experience on our side is what we would expect. Again, it's not something I expected to like as much as I do. Again, for me, like, hey, we helped make this feature amazing, and then to turn around and see customers of ours using it and getting the same value is really rewarding.
Yeah, very cool. You mentioned, not necessarily knowing that you would like this part of the job so much. After being in kind of operational security roles, technology roles for so many years, right? I think it must be refreshing to have a little bit of a change of pace, right? Probably keeps you sane a little bit.
Yeah, it's a different type of work. Just like the CIO job is a little bit of a different type of work. And for me, I mean, one of like my strengths is learning. And I absolutely love like learning new things and trying new things. And so I think that's probably why I like it so much.
Yeah. Now, in terms of kind of the product feedback, is that structured in your team in a certain way? Do you have a subset of the team that does that, spends most of their time on that? Or is it just other parts of the team, given the nature of the product, like with the SOC or with other parts that use it more and give more of that feedback? How have you set that up?
Yeah, great question. So not everybody on the team uses the product. So if you think of like what the product is doing, it is an agent on everyone's endpoint, as well as visibility to all of our cloud data storage locations. So think like Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox. And the product is monitoring sort of everything that an end user is doing with files, and it's looking for end users who are essentially exfiltrating files out of the organization. So sensitive information, certainly information that the security team needs to have visibility to, but at the end of the day, it's sensitive information. So I don't want everybody across my team to have access to that. And so right now I only have 2 people that really work fully in the product. And those 2 people are in charge of not only running the product operationally, so we can keep a handle on data that is being exfiltrated out of our environment, but they're also in charge of making sure that they test each feature fully, making sure that they have the right relationships with the product managers, and providing that feedback on a regular basis. And so those 2 people are the ones that we have as like the go-to to really create that bond with our development teams.
Great. Well, it makes sense, especially doing all of this internally. Now, for other products that you might be considering from other vendors, from third-party vendors, do you have a similar type of approach in terms of evaluating those new solutions you might bring on board?
Yeah, I don't know that there's ever a product that we don't do some sort of proof of value with. And so every time that we're looking to purchase a new product or replace an existing product, first and foremost, I feel like every CISO does this. We talk to our peers and say, hey, what's working? What's not? What are you hearing? What's new? And we get a lot of peer feedback. And then we go out and we look at a few solutions, and we always do a proof of value. Is it really going to meet our needs? We're, a product that meets the needs of maybe a 10,000 person company might not meet the needs of a smaller company. And so we're evaluating, what are the features, functionality that are going to work for us before selecting a product. I think we're a hard grader. I think that we demand a lot. I think the security industry at large demands a lot from the products that they use. We're no different from our security team. We expect a lot. We demand a lot. We want the product to truly solve a problem that we have. And when we conduct a POV, we make sure that the product does just that.
Great. Now, in terms of your CIO role, if we switch to that, I believe when you started at Code 42, you were in the security role only, and that CIO responsibilities came later. How did that happen? How did that transition come about?
Yeah. Well, if I'm being totally honest, our CEO came to me and said, the CIO is leaving and you're going to be the CIO. And I said, oh, hell no. And then, he had a great deal of confidence in me and, has been a remarkable leader for me and has pushed me and really encouraged me to take on spaces that maybe I haven't felt like 100% comfortable in, but he's always known like, hey, you have the capability to do this. And so after first saying no, I was like, hey, if you still want somebody to take that on, I'm up for it. And jumped into the CIO role. The technology team has been very, very helpful for me, very accepting of me. I've been very transparent. Day one, I was like, I've never done this job. Please have grace with me. I'm still learning. I'm going to do as much as I can to help you all out. And that role has been very surprising to me as well. I think I had this perception of the CIO role that it was very infrastructure focused, that you would be dealing with old infrastructure and old technology and trying to keep the lights on all the time. And you wouldn't really get into a spot where you're very strategic. And it has been completely different than that. For a smaller technology software company, I think what we've done is we've done a really nice job of selecting the best solutions out there that are SaaS solutions that can help our company, enable our company to meet its business objectives. And that makes a company really nimble. It makes everything across the board really flexible. If a SaaS solution isn't meeting our needs, we can make a strategic change after a year. And so I've been really surprised how much I've learned and how much I really enjoy the CIO job at Code42. It is much more of a strategic role than I ever thought would be possible. And for me, that it's been really, really fun to just understand exactly how our go-to-market teams work. So how does marketing work? How does sales work? How does sales operations support sales? How does finance work? What do they need to do? And really think through, okay, what are the applications, the SaaS solutions that they're using today? What needs to change in order for all of my peers in go-to-market functions for them to meet their business objectives? And that part has been incredibly rewarding.
Wow, that's amazing. You're really living the embodiment of what every CISO says they want to do in terms of helping the business and get product to market and understand those business objectives and what drives revenue and what are those goals. So that's incredible. You mentioned the various SaaS services and being nimble. Was Code42 always cloud first from the beginning, even, SaaS and also, AWS, Azure, infrastructure as a service?
No, Code42 has actually been around for quite some time. And so we've sort of evolved to be a full SaaS solution and a full SaaS company. When I took over the CIO role, we had lots of homegrown stuff and we had a lot of applications running on, bare metal servers in data centers. We have absolutely evolved that and really taken that cloud first strategy. But 7 years ago, we probably were not set up like that.
What do you think has been the most challenging? Like if you look back and say, oh, this is the mistake that we made from a technology direction in terms of shifting from that legacy approach, the on-premise approach to the cloud, and what might you do different?
That's a great question. I don't know for sure if there was like a hard part with that. I think from a product standpoint, one of the things that we're always challenged with is really trying to figure out cost of storage on-prem versus cost of storage in like AWS or Azure. I think that's something that a lot of technology companies struggle with. You're sort of estimating cost of storage in a current point in time versus like, okay, what will our product look like 2 years from now, and what will cost of storage be then? And so I don't know that there's one thing that was like really hard, but that estimating of cost in different architecture models, I think is like a challenge for every company.
Yeah, very interesting. We hear about the Dropbox, right? For example, that they were in the public cloud, but they decided to go largely on-prem because of those not only storage costs and the corresponding infrastructure costs as well. So yeah, that makes sense because it's all driven by that business decision on when does it make sense to incur those costs or not. Having taken on having product responsibility, security, and CIO responsibilities, how's that maybe influenced your thinking about the architecture overall and those various trade-offs? Because certainly from a security perspective, we just think a lot of times, hey, you leave it to the engineer, they're going to deploy as many controls as possible. But how has that evolved over the years for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I have like deeper appreciation as a CISO because I have the other two roles, and I'll give you a couple examples. So because, the CISO role is largely around protecting the organization based on the risk posture that the organization wants to take on. And sometimes we lose sight of the enable the organization. And the CIO role, I think, is my reminder of, hey, part of my job is enabling the organization. And as a CIO, you take something like generative AI or AI ML stuff, and the CISO, because it's new, it's different, it is potentially scary and we don't know all the risks. The natural reaction is like, okay, well, maybe we say no until we can learn a little bit more. Well, the CIO job, you can't say no. You have to enable your organization like as fast as possible. And so it's a good reminder to me, having the CIO role, that, hey, this is what we need to do. And from a security perspective, we have to fit into that. I think similarly on the role that I have related to engagement with development and looking at feature releases and user workflow and all of that, I think that part of my job, I have a much deeper appreciation for like what development goes through to get it right on the user side. And so as a CISO forever, I would use all of these security products and have these reactions like, why can't I do this? And this is terrible. And this needs to be fixed, or that, why doesn't the product do X, Y, and Z? And being kind of in the weeds from a development perspective, I understand that, and I have a lot more appreciation from a development standpoint, tied to what I would expect as a user versus how hard it is on a product side. Some of the things that I think we think are so easy in the security products that we use tend to be very huge development challenges on the product side. And so it, again, on both sides, I feel like I've learned a much deeper appreciation, kind of in the enable the organization as well as deliver security products that like I can take into my role as a CISO.
Great. Have you seen any types of products that do a great job of meeting both the security needs and the IT needs?
Oh gosh. I guess that's a really good question. In my head, we have them very bifurcated, where a lot of our products don't do both. I guess the one product that we use on both the security side and the IT side is Jamf. I feel like we'll do a number of security things and technology IT things with our Jamf product. Beyond that, to me, the products that we use meet so many of our needs, but they're very like either meet IT needs or they meet security needs.
Great. I'm going to jump around here a little bit. Earlier you mentioned you started your career at Deloitte. Where did you go after that?
So after Deloitte, I had my first daughter and I didn't want to travel as much as I was traveling, and asked to stay local and to be on local accounts. And so local to me was Minneapolis, and Minneapolis headquarters many Fortune 500 companies. And Target Corporation is headquartered in Minneapolis. And so Deloitte had a very large engagement going on with Target, and I got put on the Target account. Still working at Deloitte, but put on the Target account. And I absolutely fell in love with the culture. I fell in love with the people. At the time, not a lot of people know this about Target, but when I started at Target, we had 2 banks, and then we owned all of our clinics and pharmacies. And then we were also a retailer. So from a security perspective, we sort of had a perfect storm. We had banking, we had healthcare, and we had retail data. And one of my mentors kind of describes me as like, I run to like a perfect storm. And at Target, they were in like early stages of building out the security program, and they had a lot going on. They had their PCI audit going on. They had their GLBA audit going on. And I said, oh my gosh, this would be so fun to be part of this storm. And so joined Target Corporation. I worked at Target for, 8 years. And so I was at Target before the breach, I was at Target during the breach, and then I stayed at Target for a period of time after the breach as well.
Wow. So that's must be a great experience in terms, hey, hard to go through during that time, of course, but seeing it before, during, and after. Yeah. Can you tell us about that journey and kind of how that impacted the team and, kind of what you learned from it in retrospect?
Yeah. I could write a book on all the things I learned in retrospect, but I'll highlight just a few. Going through it, Target was no different than anyone else at that point. I think Target got a lot of negative press, obviously, but Target's security program was no different than anyone else's. Obviously, we were a giant retailer, and so we were seen. We never really left the news cycles, but the security program at Target was not terrible at all. Prior to the breach, we had issues, but no different than a lot of other people in our space. During the breach, those were some really, really trying years. We had periods of time where, we didn't sleep for a few days. We had, lots of depositions. At one point, we had like Bloomberg reporters like camping out outside of people's doors or showing up at happy hours, trying to get information from people. And so it was a really stressful period of time. Many people during that time left Target security team. But I do think that the leadership that was part of the security team did everything that they possibly could to support the team, to change things where we needed to get change done. Just really be there for each other. A year post breach, we increased the team by like 100%. We had lots and lots of new software. We had new leadership. It changed quite a bit. For me, I had a pretty large team afterwards, and I really love like getting in the weeds. And so for me, it was time to kind of leave and try something totally new, get back to kind of building a new program and a program from scratch. And so that's what was super appealing to me to move over to Code for A2. Code for A2 at the time had, I think only 2 people in the security program. And we knew we needed to really build up the program, build out the team, start to get our certifications underneath us, start to have all those pieces that would be expected as part of a security vendor solution. And so that challenge for me was really appealing and what got me to move over.
Great. You mentioned earlier, Code 42 receiving, funding, venture funding, and going through that journey at like a technology startup. Right. And you just said that you joined, and there was two security people. Kind of, what stage was that? Was that Series B funding, C funding, and so on? And how did you know that you wanted to join a startup at that point with perhaps an uncertain future in terms of how much they would actually invest in security?
Yeah, great question. Well, I don't think anyone has like a really clear answer when they're joining a startup. For me, I was super excited about the mission. I think that the space that we play in, the data loss protection space, is one that is very ripe for disruption, and buyers are eagerly awaiting a different way to approach this problem. And so that alone was really exciting to me. And at my core, I'm a builder. I like to, build new things. I like to change culture. That was really appealing as well. When I started at Code42, there wasn't a great connection between the rest of Code42 and the security team at Code42. And so I saw that as a huge challenge. How do I change the culture of the organization so that they truly think of the security team as a partner? And to me, like that's how we should be perceived in the organization. And so building that culture, building out the team, I had faith in our CEO, Joe, that he absolutely was going to support us and get us the resources we need and the funding that we needed to build out the program.
Yeah, a common theme I'm hearing from a lot of the stories that you're telling here is really one related to leadership. You mentioned, hey, your mentor at the time said, hey, you tend to run into the burning building. And, you mentioned your CEO saying, hey, by the way, hey, I want you to be the CIO as well. That coupled with, that lifelong love of learning, right? And wanting to continue to learn and grow and build something, as you just said. So it's really, I'm hearing kind of there's that mentorship, but you also have that sponsorship as well. For that next generation of security professionals, next generation of security leaders, what tips would you have for them on, hey, how do they go about getting this mentoring and this sponsorship?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of programs out there. A friend of mine runs Cybersecurity, which is a program designed for mentorship for, underrepresented people in the cybersecurity field. If you're one of those, I would highly recommend checking that out. But I also am like a firm believer in networking. And when you network in a way where eventually you meet somebody that you really, really click with, and being bold enough to ask them for help and for constant mentorship is something I would recommend 100 times over. There's interactions that you have with people that maybe have gone before you, that you sit back and you think, oh my gosh, wow, like I want to be them someday, or I would love to be able to do that the way they did it. And being bold enough to say, hey, would you help me learn how you just did that? Or will you help me navigate this or that? Is something that is not a comfortable question to ask, but a very, very important question to ask. And if you're bold enough to ask it, I can guarantee the person on the other side will not say no. I think many, many security leaders just really want to see people succeed in this space. And so, for me, like I'm mentoring like 3 different people right now. And as time allows, I add more people to the mix and help out as much as I can. I think, especially women and underrepresented people in cybersecurity, it is hard to be in this field. And so as much as like I can give back, and I know everybody, all of my peers in this space, Frank, you included, I think we're willing to like jump in and give back to those that are looking to stay in this field and to learn and to grow and to do great things.
Yeah, that is great advice. You mentioned Cyversity, and there's other organizations as well. What do you think, and certainly, hey, you're doing a lot from a personal perspective. What do you think it takes to get more women and people of color into cybersecurity and into these leadership roles?
Oh gosh, if I knew the answer to that question, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think it's just encouraging people. I think it's being, I think of myself as like I have a duty to be a little bit more um, visible, because I do think that like younger generations, if they see people that look like them that have gone before and been successful in this space, they're more willing to jump in. And so I think it's being visible. I think it's you know doing as much as we can to encourage that younger generation. One of the things that we do every single year is we do a partnership with Girl Scouts, and we bring all the Girl Scouts into our office and we support them to get like our cybersecurity badge. And as part of that, we have a lot of the women cyber leaders get up and share their story and really try to be that visual person for all of these younger generations to see like, oh yeah, they were able to do it. Like I can too. Yeah, I don't, I wish I had like the answer to that. But for us as leaders, I think it's just about being visible and encourage them and supporting them kind of along their way.
Great answer. Great answer. Now, before we switch gears here and go to the a little bit of a reverso round where I'll ask you to ask me a question. I want to ask you one last thing here is what are you most excited about in cybersecurity, in the cloud security space, or in technology overall?
Um, so this is probably the answer that many people are saying right now. I'm really excited about AI. And it's funny because like my CEO was giving me a hard time just last week about like, oh, security people would sort of like put down everything related to AI and ML, and like, oh, what a joke this is. And if we hear that in a vendor pitch, we're like, oh my gosh, please stop talking about that. And that is 100% true, because up until this point, it was kind of BS. And now what we have now with some of the LLMs and some of the things we're seeing, it is completely different, and it is actually really good. And I can see how it's going to change a lot of the technology that we use, a lot of our everyday, being as good as it is. And so I don't exactly know what the future holds, but I'm excited to see how things change with this introduction of what AI can do.
Yeah, like you said, it's definitely been a somewhat of a negative buzzword in years past, even though machine learning to various extents had been used in some security products over the years, especially from a
Mhm.
kind of thought and SIM and analysis perspective. But now, everybody's been woken up with kind of the promise of Gen AI. And, where do you see, let's, in terms of two things, one kind of AI for security, right? Improving
Mhm.
security workflows, processes with AI, and then securing AI itself. Kind of what do you
Mhm.
see? It's still very early stages, as you said, but where do you see both of those going? I'm especially curious about kind of securing AI itself, what
Mhm.
you've seen so far.
Yeah, good question. To be totally honest with you, I haven't seen anybody doing the securing AI itself in a really tangible way at this point. I think what we've sort of seen instead is the vendors that are coming out with certain things, adding security with that. So if you take something like, I don't know, AWS has Code Whisper, which is to help all the developers with writing snippets of code and whatnot. Well, one of the security risks is that all of that data is copyright. And so, what AWS Code Whisper has done is they've put in a reference tracker, and the reference tracker will tell you if the code has been copied kind of verbatim and where the code comes from. And so, it's almost like a bumper to make sure that that risk of copywriting data doesn't actually come to fruition. And so to me, I don't know that there's like, oh, this is the product that's going to secure AI. I think a lot of the products that are now coming out that have AI included, components of AI included, are going to be pushed to also include the security aspects of them. And so that's how I think security of AI is going to evolve. I think that obviously there's a lot of risk and there's a lot of things that could go wrong. And so I think that vendors that realize that and build security in as they come out with the products are going to be the winners for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good answer. So yeah, let's switch gears here. Give you an opportunity to ask me to put on the interviewing hat. Any question that you would like?
Yeah, I have a super simple question, but it's super interesting to me. And as I think about like the CISO role, a lot of us think like, okay, well, what do we do next? Like, what do we do after this? And you have been a CISO, and then you moved into the advisor role for a while. Tell me about the transition. Tell me maybe some of the things you miss about the CISO role, and then some of the things you love about the advisor role.
Yeah, really good question. Yeah. So, having been a technology and security professional for the vast majority of my career over 2 decades, it got to a point where, to be honest, I got a little bit tired, a little bit burnt out. And I knew, I could see kind of at the end of the tunnel. I didn't have perhaps, I think, it's always greener on the other side, but the seeming luxury of, having the product role that you have and the technology role that you have. So I was always thinking, well, what could potentially come next? And, having spent the vast majority of my career at large enterprises, more so on the buy side of the table, buying and deploying many different tools and technologies, I thought, oh, hey, I'm familiar with this environment. It would be great to do that with startups and get a little bit more familiar about that whole ecosystem. So over the years, I tried to learn a little bit more about the venture space and the startup world, and was introduced to a number of great founders along the way. And now doing it on a regular basis, I got to say that what I love about it is that, hey, I'm meeting incredible people, people that are a million times smarter than me every single day, having incredible conversations with them and brainstorming these different ideas and just trying to support them, right? Playing some small part in supporting them along that journey of, hopefully making a difference for their various customers. But I will say, hey, it's not always rainbows and sunshine, because on the flip side of it, hey, you do miss, right, kind of the day-to-day kind of operational roles. And, I find I have to work harder actually to make sure that I'm up to speed on the latest, because I don't have now a team that's doing these things on a day-to-day basis. And by extension, right, learning what those challenges are with the team itself. But, from a kind of you mentioned learning earlier, from a learning perspective and a growth perspective. Yeah, I wouldn't trade it at this point. It's just been super, super fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. One of the things I think about, the CISO role, you're a little bit, you have to be a little bit of like an adrenaline junkie to actually have the role. And I think about like, gosh, if you're not in a role where you're like, oh my, the sky's falling, like fix. Like I'm wondering, like, do you miss the rush of like Log4j or the rush of that? Like, do you miss a little bit of like the, oh my gosh, we got to fix this immediately type of situation? And maybe miss
We've got
the
many
wrong.
calls. Yeah, we've all got many calls and woken up in the night, and these sometimes real incidents, sometimes false alarms and so on. And for me personally, that's the part that I miss the least.
Yeah.
And so after kind of leaving kind of full-time CISO work, I was doing some consulting, just independent consulting on my own. And sometimes there would be some clients, potential customers that would say, hey, Frank, we would like you to be the virtual CISO, the vCISO. That means, hey, of course, hey, if there's something goes wrong, we're going to call you in the middle of the night. And to be honest, I would turn down those engagements because after all those years of having to deal with those emergencies, I was personally okay not doing it anymore. So I kind of find my thrill in kind of building it, informing the building of it correctly from the beginning versus the getting woken up in the middle of the night aspect.
I love it. Good call.
Yeah. Hey, with the great questions, JD. This is amazing. Now, hey, to wind things up here, wanted to ask you also have a nonprofit that's providing housing to families in the Dominican Republic. Can you tell us more about that, how that came to be, and what this organization is called and what it's all about?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking about this. This is something that is nothing to do with my career, but something I'm equally as passionate about. The how this came to be is like a very long story. We don't have another hour, so I'm going to give you the
I'd
short
love to hear the
version.
medium length version.
Yeah, right. The quick version. So in 2007, I took a trip to the Dominican Republic. Um, was part of a team that was building houses there, and came back and always wanted to go back and do more. And then in 2013, got a chance to go back with my sister and build houses and work in a really, really special area. And came home from that trip and couldn't really shake the experience and decided, gosh, I really want to do more here and really want to make an impact. And so my answer was I was going to start a nonprofit, and I was going to start to develop teams that can go down and build homes in this area. And that's what I did. At the time, we were told like we wouldn't get our nonprofit status for at least a couple of years. We got ours in like 2.5 months, and we were off to the races. We have now built like 80 some houses in this area that we work. And really we work with like a lot of like the local churches there, and we send teams, and the teams go and they spend about a week and they construct a home for families that are in an area that either the house is very unsafe, think like a roof that is close to caving in, or a dirt floor, and the dirt floor causes all sorts of sicknesses within the parents and the kids, or they don't have a house at all, and they need a place to live. And the community identifies those families, and then we work alongside a number of volunteers to get families in safe housing. And it's been incredible. It's one of those things that is rewarding beyond words can express. And so it's a lot of fun. We've been doing it now for almost 10 years. And we had to take a short break over COVID. The community wasn't allowing anybody to come into the area, but we're back in action. And we did have a team tentatively planned for October trip. And now we're going in April. So if anyone has a calling to go to the Dominican where it's incredibly hot and wants to come build a house with me, hit me up on LinkedIn. You are welcome to attend.
Incredible. I've been to DR a couple times, but only the tourist areas. Is this, are you building the houses on the northern side of the island, the southern side? Where is it geographically?
We are southwest. So you fly into Santo Domingo, which is on the south side of the island, and then you drive about 3 hours kind of northwest of Santo Domingo to a city called San Cristobal. And that is ultimately where we're trying to improve kind of the structure of the community, the physical needs of families, and just kind of the entire city overall.
Great. And then last question about the nonprofit. Where does the funding come from?
From all over the place. So we have kind of individual donors that have supported us. We have companies that, want to do like a tax write-off, and they'll submit donations. Any donations can be made right on our website. Our organization is called Building Without Borders. And so the website, you can Google us. It's the first one that comes up, Building Without Borders, and then submit a donation via PayPal right from the website. And so we get donations from lots of different places. And a lot of times we get them sent direct for a trip. And so the trip that we're fundraising for right now is our April trip. where we'll be headed there the first week of April. And I forgot to mention this, but obviously it's a nonprofit, so everything is tax exempt. And then the one thing that is very, very unique about our nonprofit is every dollar that is donated is a dollar that goes directly to the Dominican Republic. So nobody's taking any sort of cut of money. Everything is volunteer run. And so we're able to take every dollar and use that dollar for a house build in the Dominican Republic.
Great. Well, hey, thank you so much for sharing. If to our listeners, if anybody is interested, please do visit the website and consider making a donation. Jadee, it was so great to speak with you. Thanks a lot for sharing your experience and your insights here. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Frank.